When I was on holiday a little while back, I did a whole sketchbook in the week, and one of the things I had a go at was adding a bit of collage with my urban sketches. I sat on the beach at Beer, sketched this little boat, and I added in newspaper to just give a further dimension to it. The next day, I did it all as collage, just with papers that I'd collected during the day. But this got me thinking. I was then lucky enough to go on a lovely workshop with an artist called Karen Carter. It was all about collage landscapes, and one of the things was to add some collage paper and then draw on top. And I really loved that because it was very similar to what I've been trying to do before. So in these two films, I want to show you how to use collage and then drawing on top, and use that as part of your urban sketching practice. This one has been done with collage and then using a fountain pen and grey ink with a little watercolour. This one was done with a dip pen and walnut ink with a little watercolour. Neither took more than sort of 10-15 minutes. I think the collage really adds something to the whole sketching process. So let me show you what I did. What you need is your journal, and you need some neutral papers. We're going to add a little bit of collage and then work in line work on top of it. They don't have to be anything fancy. So I have got a page out of a book. I've got some old sweet wrappers, no old sweets. I've got a bit of, wow, just very thin tissue paper. Now I have got a few more fancy papers. This is mulberry paper. It's got a lovely texture. This paper's got a bit of silvery sparkle in, and that actually is the paper I used to cover my journal, and I had a little bit left over. Got some brown wrapping paper. That's got a bit of print on, and that is sort of like a silk paper. So you can use found papers, so brown paper, tracing, sweet papers, or you can push the boat out if you've got something fancier. Either will work. You could use a bit of old newspaper, and that would actually be really nice if you want something a bit more gritty maybe. What might be nice is to add a little pop of colour into your neutrals, and this is entirely optional. Just remember, if you add colour, say this dark blue, and then you're going to work in pen on top, this might be a bit too dark. I might add in a bit of orange because it's October and it's quite autumnal out there. You need, I'm going to say 4 or 5 pieces of paper only. So be decisive. I'm going to go that. I really quite fancy the sweet papers. Why not? Bit of the tissue because I quite like the transparency, and brown paper. Yeah, I'll do that. I think it's better to use found stuff if you possibly can. What you also need is some matte gel medium. This stuff is magic. It's great. It acts as a glue, it acts as a varnish, it acts as a sealer. It's really good. I like Pabio because it's pretty reasonable in price. You can use whatever brand you like. You'll need a flat brush just to put it on, so nothing smart. You can see what a state that's in. And then we'll need a pen right at the end, but I'll go through some of those options when we get to that point. I would suggest working on a spread. Let me show you one I've done before. I prepared 2 and then developed them just as some little landscape. And the reason it's nice to have 2 is that if you frankly screw one up, you've still got another going. And if you're working on that, not sure whether you're finished, you can then carry on to this so that you don't overwork that. And you can try a slightly different approach on each. So working in a little series of at least 2, but 4 would be brilliant, I like. All we need to do is make a pleasing arrangement of our paper. Now, you saw me just tear it. I like a torn edge. It's not as shouty as a straight edge, but you might want a straight edge. That's entirely up to you. I have nothing in mind here. Someone said to me, and I think it's an interesting idea, that if you're using text, it's a good idea to either put it upside down or sideways so people don't get distracted reading the text. I guess if the text is relevant to your image, you might want to add that in. Try not to overthink this. You know, you could spend so long arranging the bits of paper on your surface that you never actually get round to doing sticking it down or doing the line work. Make sure it's pleasing, but it doesn't have to be anything too stunning. I don't know how this sweet paper is going to work and whether actually that circle might be a little obtrusive. Never used those before. And the great thing about working in your journal, of course, is that you can experiment. One of the best questions any artist can ask is, what happens if? Maybe I will bring it to the fore on this one, and maybe I'll hide it a bit more on that one. And then that was the tracing sort of paper. Once you're happy with your composition, then it's time to stick it down. If you've done something quite complicated, I would really recommend taking a photo at this point, because nothing's worse than having, you know, faffed around and got it all sorted, and then you move it so you can stick it and you can't remember how you had it. You can get gel in gloss. You can also get it in pearlescent and all sorts. But matte is probably the most versatile, because if I want to work on top of this, I'll be able to, because of the matte, it gives a bit of grip. And if I seal over my papers, it'll stop any of the ink absorbing in, because I reckon if I put ink on top of some of these papers, it would feather and I wouldn't get sharp lines. It would probably be sensible to have a glue sheet, so just a piece of paper that you do the gluing on so that you don't get it everywhere. But on the grounds that I don't mind it if it goes on top papers, I'm not doing that, and I just want to show you. Don't use too much because it'll take forever to dry, but you do want to make sure the edges go down. You could use PVA glue, you could use a Pritt stick, you know, glue stick, that sort of thing. But as I say, matte gel is pretty good. Now, say you were an urban sketcher, you could prepare a whole load of pages, and when you've decided what you're sketching, just choose one that feels right for your subject. So you can prepare these in advance. Oh, top tip, if you're using very thin paper like that, I would put your glue onto the heavy paper rather than putting it onto there, because a lot of these sort of tissue papers just fall to pieces the moment they get damp. Most papers you can maneuver around if you put it down and don't like where you've put it, but once a tissue paper's down, it's pretty much down. And can you see that transparency? That's what I wanted to get. So you've got lovely layers of paper and it's sort of veiling that. Now, again, if you don't like the wrinkles, you could probably press them out. I don't mind wrinkles. Let's do our second one. I guess if you're doing a huge piece, matte gel would be expensive to use as a glue. So you might want to do some sticking with something cheaper like PVA, which is white school glue. I think Americans call that Elmer's glue. So you might want to use that. Now with that sweet case, I don't want to lose all the texture. Okay, I'm changing my mind. I'm going to put it. All I would suggest is that you try not to line up edges too much. I wouldn't want, say, the edge of that orange bit to be in line with the edge of this bit with the edge of that bit, for example, because you're just trying to get a little visual interest going on. And I do really like how it veils the text. So that is our collage. We're just making sure it's all stuck down. We've sealed over the top, and now we're going to let it dry, come back to it and work into it. So you could get to this stage and leave it for months and then come back and think, oh, and carry on, or indeed let it dry, use a hairdryer, and you'll be ready to go in 10 minutes. My collage is all dry and nicely stuck down, always worth checking a few edges. So now I can think about sketching on top of it. And I've got 2 photos that I took while we were in York recently. I couldn't do any urban sketching while I was there, partly because we were only there for a day, and partly it rained most of the time and it was blooming cold. So I couldn't actually sit and sketch, but I took a few photos and I thought maybe these would be fun. I was thinking I would sketch this one here, and for no other reason, I think it was just that little bit of orange there just reminded me of this square over here. I haven't done a timed urban sketch with one of my fountain pens for absolutely ages. I'm going to use this grey sketch ink. It's Thea, and it comes from Reurer and Klingner of Germany. I'm going to use my little Twisby pen because I haven't used it for a while. This building was bang opposite our hotel, and I just loved these old stable doors. I presume the coaches used to drive in through there, and this great lamp. So that's why I took it. Shall I see how much I can do in 10 minutes? Oh, I'm all nervous to start now. Okay, and the clock is ticking. I am not going to... Oh, so I'm getting a lot of ink gushing out of there. Why is that? I don't know. I'm going to do it mostly as a continuous line and no underdrawing, and let's see what happens. Isn't it a beautiful building? So I'm not being overly pure with my continuous line here at all. It's just a rough continuous line. So I love this archway. Ooh. So the only problem working on top of the collage is that it catches maybe a little bit, but I can live with that. Seems to have lost the top there. Never mind. Guess this is a door to a cellar, maybe. perhaps a delivery shoot of some description, don't know. Because I've got this quite splurgy bit of ink here, I'm going to have to go careful that I don't smudge it. So I'm letting my eye travel round the picture, I'm letting my pen follow my eye, and I'm not going to be overly concerned if some of the proportions are a bit off, which they are. And if some of my lines aren't terribly straight, does that matter? Oh, it's coming back to me, this. I do like doing this sort of just fast sketch that captures the nub of what we're seeing. I love taking time as well and spending more time sort of in a more considered approach. But you know, sometimes just to prove to yourself what you can do in 10 minutes is a really positive thing. And I haven't done this for a while. Why haven't I? Don't know, but I'm glad to be doing it again. What are we doing? It's about 5 minutes, I think. This pen is coping quite nicely with such a rough paper. So the paper in my sketchbook is sort of like an eco handmade paper. Beautiful. It is watercolour paper, but it is super rough, and I wasn't sure how my poor fountain pen would cope with it, but it seems to be. Right, let's just get some of this going on through the back of the gates, given that it was the gates that attracted me to this in the first place. Let's get in some of that. Nice big padlock there, one nice hinges over here. There's some sort of pipe hanging down that we can see there. I'm going to emphasize the archway. Do you know, I'd really like to get some colour on this, but I'm not going to be able to because of that wet ink where it's splurged out at the beginning until it dries, because otherwise that's just going to go everywhere. So I'll do a 10-minute ink drawing and then let it dry, and I will add a little colour at the end. I hope you will indulge my little cheat there. You can hear from the scratching that this pen is struggling with how rough that paper is, but it's enough. Let's get some of these curbstones. Honestly, York was just so full of stunning buildings. I hope there's an incredibly busy Urban Sketches in York. I bet there is. If you remember, do tell me. because wow, you are spoilt for choice. Let's emphasize some of these arches as well. I think we're about 7 minutes now. Maybe some of that brickwork across there. Don't like that light blue, so I don't think I'll bother putting that in. Oh, haha, hadn't put that gorgeous arch in. Now I know that I haven't got the proportions terribly good because that's a lower arch and this is a higher one, but hey, it was just meant as a bit of fun. I'm just going to echo one of these arches here. It doesn't have to be finished off. Right, I think that is about 8 minutes, maybe that's 9 minutes. And I think that's probably all the penwork I need to do. Don't think I'll put any of that building in the background. Oh, there's a nice fence that I can just see here. Quite like those vertical bits there. If you want to have a go at this, I'll put it in the community tab here on this channel, and you're very welcome to have a go and see how much you get done in 10 minutes. Have I missed anything crucial? I don't think so. Some of those bricks around there. Just get that roof. Don't know what's going on there. Haven't got room for the television aerial. And get a step. It's going here. Loving these paving stones as well. They're quite nice for sort of leading your eye into the composition. Okay, 10 minutes I reckon. Let me dry this and then I'll get some watercolour on there. Thought it'd be fun to use my full set from Viviva Colour Sheets because it's got some really lovely orange in there. I mean, look at these two, and I thought, oh, I could pick up some really funky orange to echo that little bit of collage. So I'm going to keep my palette very simple, and we're going to have an orange sky because the sky is always orange in York, isn't it? And because this is such a rough paper, I'm going to try and use that texture to my advantage and let it show through. I'm going to grab some of this bluey grey because blue is the complementary colour of orange, so introducing a little bluey grey in there, though frankly that looks more grey to me, I don't think is a bad idea. And just introduce a little bit of twinkle and sparkle on some of these windows. Again, doesn't have to be exactly accurate in terms of the number of windows or panes. We're just trying to get the impression of what's happening. Maybe put a little bit of wall action going on there. I think it would be nice to highlight that lamp using the orange, because that would connect across, wouldn't it? That's it. And those gates, which are gorgeous and what attracted me in the first place, I am going to have to paint, and I have chosen brick red rather than say crimson, just as a connection halfway between the orange. I don't know whether that was wise actually. No, it's too close, so I'll pull that off. Let's try the crimson. I thought the crimson might be not the right colour, but I think that is better. And now I can just let my imagination go for a tiny little bit of a wander. Put in a few more lines of colour where I want them to make the picture and make the story, because that's what you're doing, isn't it, with drawing. You are telling a story, not necessarily just representing the place in front of you. You are trying to capture a feel of a place. I might just put a bit of that red over here on that door. Just get a bit of texture in that pavement. And here I'm totally cheating by just putting a little bit of brick action. And if you'd allow me one more little cheat, just really want to get some white in here to emphasize that lovely, lovely, lovely lamp, which has got a little bit lost. I'm using an acrylic marker. It's not the whitest of white, but maybe it'll just give a little bit of emphasis there. So there you are, using a little bit of random collage to create an extra dimension in your urban sketching. So give it a go, prepare those pages, and you'll be amazed what you can put on top and the extra sort of dimension, the extra layers that it brings to your sketches.